So let's go to point two, Vince. Let's go to number two on this matchup, and that is the Notre Dame pass offense against the Toledo pass defense. Now, this is interesting because Toledo's defense numbers are going to look great based on the opener. They held the opponent to go 9 of 19, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good day. Only gave up, 134 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick with a quarterback rating of 113.46. Problem is Norfolk State stinks when it comes to throwing the football.
You know what's funny is you and I are looking at box scores, I'm guessing from 2 different places because I have completely different numbers than you.
What do you have?
I have 8 of 18 for 125 yards.
Okay.
So it's just interesting. I don't.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from pro CFB stats.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
well, which I would trust more than where I'm at right now.
Well, who are you looking at?
ESPN.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Why are you giving them the clicks? What's wrong with you, man?
It came up on Google, man. So I clicked and went. But yeah, it's funny that they're.
I'm gonna pull up there, but it's like probably just
either
one
way.
pass. I'm gonna pull up the Toledo team stats here.
It's one more completion and attempt that you have that was for what, 6 yards?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Here's a shocker: ESPN was wrong.
I told you.
The Toledo official stats have them as 9 of 19
Fair
for
enough.
134 yards.
I just thought that was funny. All right, sounds good.
I can't wait to
Now I know better.
Yes. Tommy Guns, I'm going to get to your super chat. I appreciate it. We're going to get to that after the show here, but the answer is no. So let's look at this matchup, Vince. Toledo obviously. Great numbers week 1, and Notre Dame, the numbers that, again, the numbers you see here, right?
Yeah, right.
Which way we going? Right that way? That way?
I got it right the first
there.
time.
Those numbers right there don't look anything like what we saw in the opening weekend from either team. Obviously, Toledo had great success against the Norfolk State offense that is a run heavy offense, and Notre Dame's pass game was phenomenal. I mean, Jack Cohn's numbers in the opener were ridiculous. And then when you consider the fact that he, had 2 balls dropped that probably could have got him close to 400 yards.
I think he would have been over 400. I think he would have been over 400.
Yeah, I mean, that was an incredibly impressive performance. I mean, you talk about a quarterback rating of 194.14, average 10.5 yards per attempt, 14.1 yards per completion. 74.3 completion percentage, and gave up. They got sacked 4 times, I think. That was the one drawback.
That's a bugaboo for sure.
But 366 yards, and it's not like he had they went to 3 overtimes. He had 0 passing yards in overtime.
That's true because they went conservative and just
right.
I mean, they threw a swing pass, but I think it was for no gain.
It was one of those bootleg under routes to Michael Mayer, and he got tackled at the line of scrimmage.
Right. Yeah.
So they didn't say they have any passing yards. So his numbers in regulation were.
They went super conservative in overtime.
Once they missed that field goal, I mean, again, I don't necessarily love that decision, but you know what? It is what it is. But but you look at what the numbers were beforehand. And really, if you look at the numbers before the Hail Mary. Really threw 33 pass because he was what did I just say 35 pass attempts, right? Mm-hmm. You take away the Hail Mary and then that overtime throw, he was at 33 pass attempts. That's 11.1 yards per attempt. That's better than what Alabama had last 2 years. Right. Just to put it into context of how good that performance was. So, and then you're going against a Toledo pass defense that last year did have – this is the area where they did have some problems last year. Yards per game were not good. Yards per attempt were better, but they had some there were some games where they really struggled with the pass game. And that's something that I'm curious to see how he's been able to get that cleaned up. I think that, to me, is probably the area where you're going to be furthest behind when you talk about not being able to get your defensive install done because of COVID. Good start in the first game, but and then you look at it, and it needs some context. Those numbers, again, 47 yards per attempt. They played Bowling Green in the opener. Bowling Green went 8 of 30 in that game last year for 128 yards. The next 4 games, they gave up 69 completion percent, 64.1, 74.3. Northern Illinois went 19 of 39 for 48.7, so that was better. but those 19 completions resulted in 273 yards. They gave up 284, 244, 304 to Ball State, 273 to Northern Illinois. Gave up 3, 4, 2, and 2 touchdown passes in those next 2 games. So 11 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in the next 4 games. That was obviously not a great performance. Had a better performance against Central Michigan, but Central Michigan was not a very good passing team last year. Central Michigan averaged 200 yards per game last year passing, had a quarterback rating as a team of 128.94. They were not a very good passing team last year. They were a running team under Jim McElwain. So, I mean, not a surprise. They averaged 218.2 rushing yards per game. So their pass defense is, to me, Vince, is the area where I think they're most vulnerable if we're talking about it from just a pure matchup. Forget what Notre Dame needs to work on, just looking at their team versus the other team. This is the area where I think Notre Dame has the biggest advantage.
Well, and from what we saw in game 1, and obviously you have the 2020 numbers up there for Notre Dame, which for good reason, there's only been 1 game for Notre Dame. Right. But what we saw, it's a completely different philosophy for Notre Dame offensively this year. And if we were taking away, our pluses from Sunday night's game, it was the pass game. I mean, the only thing that derailed the pass game were the fact that Jack Cohn didn't have time in the pocket at times, right? I mean, that was
and 2 drops.
And 2 drops, exactly. And so, I'm sorry, but I don't anticipate Michael Mayer having the dropsies all season. I just don't. He's not that kind of a player. He's a very confident player. He's a kid who's going to fix that, right? And we've seen that in a microcosm of the Clemson game, right? He had a couple drops early, then he made the big play late. And I see that being the case with him. So I'm not necessarily worried about him. I just think that this pass game for Notre Dame is just going to take even another step potentially, spreading the ball around, getting the slots involved a little bit more, things of that nature. Plus, here's what I would like to see. And I realize that this is kind of a combo situation. I would like to see, there were 8 or 9 RPOs in the last game. I would like to see a pull and throw at some point, right?
Now,
and go ahead.
Just because we talked about, I just want to enter, because yesterday we talked about, we questioned whether or not there were those.
Right.
I went back and looked at my notes again, looked at my breakdown, went through it again last night. There was actually 2 big ones in the second half, including the first play of the second half. So that throw to Kevin Austin on the first play of the second half, that was an RPO. And it was a little different because in the first half, they were just doing those little look screen RPOs. They actually did some. The little throw out to Kevin Austin to the right where he caught it, made a guy miss, that was also an RPO. It looked to me like Tommy Rees went in there at halftime and said, hey, we got to make some adjustments because they were crowding the box and they needed to get the ball outside there, giving Notre Dame one-on-ones. And that's something that I liked, Vince, to your point. I want to see more pull and throws. I do.
Right.
I want to see a little bit more creative RPO game this week, but I liked the fact that at halftime it was obvious that Tommy Rees went in and said, hey, we need to make some adjustments. Some of those adjustments are we got to do these RPOs because if they're just going to load – because Florida State didn't blitz a whole lot. They really didn't. There's like the heated Notre Dame. No, they really didn't.
No, there was a lot of 4-man fronts.
That was a lot of 4-man fronts. Super disappointing.
Right.
But they were aggressive with their coverages. They were basically saying, Notre Dame, you're going to have to beat us throwing the ball downfield. And Jack Cohn was like, word, gotcha, I'll do that. So that was that to me. To your point, I just wanted to add some – I don't want to interrupt your point because your point is accurate, but I did want to just interject that because you and I value being accurate. And yesterday we said we couldn't remember them pulling and throwing any RPOs.
Sure.
So I just wanted to point out those 2. Please get back to your point. Sorry for the interruption, but again, I wanted to make sure that we were accurate in what we were saying. But your point still stands, so please continue.
Right. If I'm looking at ways for this pass game to get better, to take another step, right, it starts for me with the RPO game, and I'd like to see that just a little bit more. And I realize the whole point of an RPO is to take what the defense is giving you, right? And if they're giving you the run game, then you hand it off. I mean, I totally get that. But I would like to see some pulls and throws because I still think Jack Cohn getting the ball out of his hands in a quick manner is an underestimated part of his game. And I don't think he really even had an opportunity to show it in the first game. And I think that his decision-making and him getting rid of the ball is something that I think he's really good at. And I think he can showcase that a little bit more in this game and moving forward. So I'd like to see that. And then, of course, I would like to see the offensive line provide him the opportunity to do the things that he needs to do in the pocket. I mean, there were too many times where he was the middle of the line was getting pushed back into him, and he wasn't able to step into his throws, or he got rocked and he couldn't do what he needed to do. So that's what I would like to see from this offensive pass game.
I think that also would affect the part that we just talked about. I think that being able to pull on some of those times where, especially in this game, I think RPOs should even be more effective this game than they were last week, because the thing is, because Florida State was not low. Florida State had a lot of guys near the line.
Yes, they did.
But they weren't.
But they didn't
loading
go
the box the way that they did last year.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily go. They were kind of like setting the edge, if you will, just kind of staying out there. Yeah.
They thought they blitzed more in the first quarter and a half than they did the last 2.5 quarters, because they realized we're whooping Notre Dame's butt with 4.
Yeah.
So what that allowed them to do was then use their linebackers and safeties to just run to the ball. And so when Notre Dame was getting outside, they were still getting to Notre Dame and limiting the gains to a degree, because they had guys coming downhill from depth. Whereas last year, once Notre Dame got past the line of scrimmage, there was nobody there, and they were able to rip off the long runs. And so I think that is where the RPOs kind of weren't quite as effective, like the quick game RPOs that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's why the best RPO they did was just a straight drop back, let her rip, which I thought set the tone for the second half and the aggressiveness that we saw in the third quarter. And I love the fact that we saw so much. I mean, they threw a touchdown, a 41-yard touchdown on 4th and 1. They threw a 37-yard touchdown on 3rd and 1. Like, I loved that. You know, we saw 3rd and goal from the 6. We saw Jack Cohn hit. You know, we saw an empty free release from Notre Dame with Kyron Williams just swinging outside, catching the ball, making a guy miss.
Yeah,
we saw some aggressiveness in the pass game that we hadn't seen last year. We didn't see last year, and I liked that. I think that's going to benefit the run game. I think, but this is a week where some of that RPO stuff should be more effective. If Toledo's not forced to bring 6 guys, we're going to be in trouble. There's no question. So,
and if they are bringing 6, just to add on to your point, if they are bringing 6, that's where it's the pull and the go, and you're going to get that wide open intermediate area where your RPOs are,
and you can get that stuff outside and get the guys. You know, you can get those guys
get a 2-on-3 out there. You can get a 2-on-1. You know, you can capitalize on the numbers, because if they're bringing 6, that means they're taking that 6th person away from some place on the defense, and you have to be able to take advantage of that.
Right, and so that's going to be the matchup. I mean, look, personnel-wise, Toledo, Florida State. Yes, they got that game.
Still, I mean, we've been talking about it for like 6 months. So
they do have some decent size in the secondary. Their nickelback is 6'1", 195. Nate Bowers is a strong safety. He's a good player, experienced player. He's 6'1", 195. He's a kid that actually Notre Dame looked at coming out of high school. He's a good football player, really athletic kid. Their free safety, Zachary Ford, is 6'3", 203. And then they've got a freshman cornerback starting, Quinyon Mitchell, who's 6'1", 197. I'll say this: if I don't see Tommy Rees, as I've been praising Tommy Rees all week,
sure,
I'm excited what he's going to do in the second game. I haven't looked this much forward to what the game plan is going to be in a long time. I'm like excited about the game plan after what we saw Saturday. I hope that they don't just come out and say, hey, let's go 12, 13 personnel because we got to get the run game going.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that gets you better for Purdue and Wisconsin. So it doesn't mean that you don't do things to try to get your run game established, but you've got to do it within the framework of what makes you a better football team. And going 12 personnel all day just to run the football against Toledo, I don't think makes you a better football team. You got to be able to run out 11 personnel. You've got to be able to run out of shotgun. You got to be able to do those things, right? Now, do you want to do some things maybe where you get under center and line up and do some things where you want to run the ball? Then that maybe sets up your true play action game. Sure, I'm good with that. Okay. But the point is, Vince, is that they need to still be aggressive throwing the football. They can't take a step back. If that's going to be who they are, they got to do that no matter who they're playing.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like this is, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, I feel like this is an identity game. This is where, look, we saw some really good things from this offense in the first game, right? And we saw some things they obviously need to work on. But in games like this is where you establish your identity. Right? This is where you're like, okay, this is who we are. This is what we do. We're going to be good at this. And it doesn't matter who we're playing. This is what we need to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see them take a step back, like you said, and just be, we're going to go 13.
Brian Kelly has had a tendency to do in the past.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So to me, this is a huge identity situation for this offense and for Tommy Rees. If they go out and they have the same similar game plan that they had against Florida State, this is what we're going to see the rest of the year.
Just execute it better, right? Like exactly. I'm all good. If you want to force the run game early to get it going, I'm good with that. But don't do it in ways that's not who you are. Don't start going 12, 13 personnel all game.
Exactly.
Right? That to me doesn't make you a better football team.
Yep.
Maybe mix it in and things. So when you get back to the pass game, I want to see them be more aggressive. And they have a true freshman. So what I was going to say is they got a true freshman at corner. If I don't see, as excited as I am about this, if I don't see Tommy Rees going after him like early, like first few series, I'm going to be disappointed. And then the other corner, who's a good football player, Samuel Womack, he's a veteran player, solid football player, I should say. He's 5'10".
Right.
So you got two matchups that I like in this game that I want to see them take advantage of.
Yes, no question.
That's going to be the key. And that's going to tell me a little something about where the mindset is this football team. It's like, look, you got to be who you are. It doesn't mean you don't improve other parts of your game, but if this right now, you get see Vince, right? So here we go. There we go. If this right here is the best part of where your offense is, you don't take a step away from that because you got to work on the other parts. You continue to thrive in that as you bring the other parts along, and then you use this part of your game to make that other part better. That's what I want to see. And that was to your point about you started talking about RPOs during the pass game section, because those things are going to not only make your pass game effective, but those things are going to start protecting your run game.
Right.
And they forced Toledo or Florida State to defend them down the field.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see them do a little bit more, forcing them to defend the width of the field with the pass game. We didn't necessarily
do that. Didn't really do that. Yeah, you're right.
Some of the quick stuff to the backs I liked. The swing. We had a 9-yard swing screen to Chris Tyree. That was a design screen. You had a swing screen to the right. You had a tunnel screen to the left. Both of them were there. He took the correct pre-snap read. Now the tunnel screen opened up post-snap, but pre-snap Jack Cohn went where he was supposed to go. You had the swing to Kyron Williams where he got him in space and made a dude miss and scores a touchdown. So we saw it, but we need to see it more past the line of scrimmage now.
Sure.
The 10-yard outs, the 5-yard outs, the things like that. The quick hitches where you let Braden Lindsey catch it and square a dude up. They need to get Lawrence Keys more involved. I don't know if that's going to happen. I thought it was an absolute embarrassment that Lawrence Keys got 5 snaps. He's healthy. I know for a fact he's healthy. Got 5 snaps in this game. Ridiculous. Your slot's got 0 targets. Some of that was how Florida State was playing. They weren't going to let you beat them in the hash, really.
Sure.
But there needs to be some more of that, and I think that's an area where they can. That is one area where I think the pass defense can improve. And for Toledo, the question is going to be: can you put pressure on the quarterback, and can you do it without bringing 6? I think that's going to be a question mark in this game. That's the only hope that they have, is that they can get pressure on the quarterback, maybe have a strip sack or 2, force Jack Cohn to have to throw quick, force him to make misses because they're in his face. And that's where you're going to see a lot of those twists and stunts and corner fires and zone dogs and all that kind of stuff, is trying to get him into a quick throw and then you're dropping right into it and you pick it off.
Right.
That's those are the things that Vince Karras is going to design in an attempt to try to get done. I'll
try to confuse the quarterback, right?
I mean, that's beat Notre Dame man to man. You have to be able to force Notre Dame into mistakes.
Right.
And you have to scheme your way into that. And so outside of that, Vince, the advantage in this matchup clearly is with Notre Dame.
Oh, absolutely. It's not really even a debate, especially with what we saw. Like I would have taken Notre Dame if we were talking about this last year.
Right.
But
just those numbers right there to me, when you consider the competition, give Notre Dame the edge.
Absolutely. But then we take into account what they did last week. Right. And I feel like they should be, if Tommy Rees is everything I think he is, they're going to double down on what they were doing in week 1. Right. And I think that's even more of an advantage for Notre Dame. So, and again, there's things we're going to be looking for to get better, right? No question. But in this matchup,
isn't that kind of crazy that there's a lot of things you and I could point to in the past game that could have been better? And they completed 74.3% of their passes for 366 yards and 4 touchdowns, and went 9 of 12 on 3rd and 4th down, throwing the ball for like 178 yards and 3 touchdowns.
They were best on 3rd and 4th down in the past game. I felt like it's a different feeling when Notre Dame goes into 3rd and 4th down now than I've ever had in the past, ever.
And you know what, too, is by throwing a touchdown on 4th and 1, by throwing another touchdown on 3rd and 1, you've now put the rest of your opponents on notice.
Yeah.
You better not load the box up.
Please load the box up.
If you want to give us a one-on-one to Kevin Austin, we'll take it.
Right.
I don't care what down and distance it is. If you want to try to go one-on-one with Michael Mayer, I don't care if it's 4th and 2 centimeters.
Right.
We're not throwing the ball, because that's even more effective. A 41-yard touchdown pass is more effective than a 1-yard run to get you that moves the chains.
Right. Yep. Could not agree more.
So before we move on to the final breakdown, Vince, we did have a super chat from Jay. Jay says, when is the last time Notre Dame played 5 ranked opponents versus number 18 Wisconsin, number 7 Cincinnati, number 19 Virginia Tech, number 14 USC, number 24 North Carolina? Well, they played 7 ranked opponents in 2017. Teams that finished ranked in 2017. So that was this schedule still has some catching up to do to what that
and on top of that
schedule.
I'm not 100% convinced that every one of these teams that's listed is going to finish ranked. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's definitely possible, but you could make a case that may not be the case. So,
yeah, because when you look at the 2017 team, 7 ranked teams, 6 in the regular season.
Right.
So to answer your question, the last time that happened was 2017. And that was teams that finished ranked, not that were ranked at some point in time in the season.
And that's what matters to me.
Right.
That's what matters to me.
Yeah, because otherwise you say what in 2015? Hey, they beat a number 15 Georgia Tech. They went 3-9.
Right. And and then there was a year that they faced Michigan State early on. They weren't ranked. And then they ended up in
2013.
They ended up in the top 10, right?
3. They went 13.
Yeah, top 5.
Their only loss was to Notre Dame.
Yeah. So those are the rankings.
So that was a huge win. That was a huge win. You give Brian Kelly credit for beating a top 5 team. I don't care if they weren't ranked at the time. Clearly, they were a top 5 team. It was a September game. So the preseason polls don't. It's like you're going to say that they beat a top 15 Georgia Tech team in 2015. They went 3-9, or the year before that when they played Michigan State on the road and Michigan State was top 10 and they finished 7-6
and then fell out. Yeah, exactly.
They weren't a good team. So it's about what they finished. But I do think at least 4 of those teams are going to finish in the top 25.
Okay.
But I don't think all 5 of them are. I think one of them will fall. I don't know who it's going to be yet, but one of them.
There's candidates. I mean, there's candidates to fall out. I mean, we'll see how the year goes and things.
Well,
we've only seen
Wisconsin
1 week.
only has one more game between now and the time they play Notre Dame, or 2. They have 2 more.
They should have 2 more, unless I
they have a bye.
Do they have a bye this early?
Yeah, so they play they play Eastern Michigan this weekend, then they have a bye, then they play Notre Dame.
Okay, well,
so they decided to put all their eggs in the let's beat Notre Dame basket with that schedule. I don't think that's going to work out well for them, in my opinion.
Right, that's the sarcasm.
And they need extra games. I mean, the way that they played, they need more than the Eastern Michigan game on offense to get that thing going. But that's a different conversation for a different day.
Yes, it is.
So.